Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hello everyone, Craig here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Edward, and he's selling his Amazon KDP business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So welcome to the show, Edward. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. We've got uncharacteristically good weather in the UK, so it's put me in a right good mood.
That's a rare occasion. I'm talking from experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to talking more about your business. But before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of the business. It's an Amazon KDP business in the books niche, created in October 2018. The average monthly revenue for the business is $3,739, and it makes an average of $3,397 net profit each month. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 53875 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that I've given a general overview of the business, let's have a look at what's included in the sale. We have the Amazon KDP account with 329 books in total, including 70 ebooks, 70 hardbacks, 121 paperbacks, and 68 audiobooks. We have the domain including all site content and files, an email list with 48 subscribers, employee contracts, and a Facebook account. Okay, Edward, and now let's hear from you. Can you tell us a little about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, so I've always been, I suppose as many people are, interested in sort of entrepreneurial type stuff. And a few years ago, I was stumbling across various YouTube channels, the general, how to make money online, passive income, sort of general bent. Stumbled across people talking about publishing, more specifically with audiobooks and that kind of stream of things. Definitely took an interest in it. Around the time I was very, very interested in getting involved was around the time I was getting married. So I was acutely aware that I was going to have a lot less money on an ongoing basis. Not saying that marriages are drastically expensive, but I suppose they can be. And I was keen to get something started. And I think the idea of having an online business, something that could be, you don't necessarily need to work a 9 to 5 to build it. You can do it in your own time and obviously work with outsourced people and everything to help grow it. I think that was a big thing for me. So yeah, I bought a couple of courses, dove straight in, and I suppose the rest is relative history.
Yeah, that's certainly a story I'm sure a lot of online entrepreneurs can resonate with. And so I guess you're talking about this business that you started. Is this the first business you started?
Yes. So this is the kind of original first time I'd ever done anything online. And I suppose anyone that's interested in listening, you'll see there are varying months of particularly outstanding income, and then everything kind of levels off. But the fact that it's been relatively stable over such a long period with pretty much no involvement from my side is kind of the key thing that I really enjoyed about it. And the fact that I had to do almost zero work on a day-to-day basis got me to thinking, maybe I should do some other stuff. So I've been exploring other unrelated businesses, so like not publishing stuff related to books, but not publishing books specifically. And that's been the focus more recently.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So could you tell us a little about your journey of growing the business, how you launched and how you started to grow it?
Yeah, it was a case of, as with all these things, you buy into the marketing when you buy courses and stuff, and you're like, this is going to be it. I think maybe it's the British side of me. I kind of tempered my expectations down quite a lot. Are you going to be making $1,000 a month within 2 weeks? That sort of stuff. I kind of assumed that probably wouldn't be the case. But after really getting stuck into it, I think I've made my first $500 a month within 2 or 3 months of buying the course. And then, as with a lot of these things, once you realize that it does work, it just becomes a bit of an obsession. So you're like, okay, more is better. Let me publish more books. Let me refine what I'm doing. Let me go into different niches. Let me try different things. Let me try different strategies. Let me go on different platforms. And it just becomes quite all-consuming, which is great fun. Not ideal if you've got a partner that wants to spend time with you, but great fun as a single person that's very involved in business. So yeah, I think that was all it took, a couple $100 in the first sort of profitable month, and I was hooked.
Absolutely, yeah. And you start to build that momentum and you can just sort of accelerate from there. And so in terms of the business structure, how does the business primarily make money?
Essentially, the content itself, i.e. the books, the manuscripts themselves, are on multiple platforms. So they're in, as you said previously, it's in ebooks, paperbacks, some hardbacks, and some audiobook versions as well. And those distributed on various platforms again. So one book becomes an ebook, a paperback, a hardback, an audiobook. The ebook will be on 2 or 3 different sites. The paperback will be on 2 or 3 different sites, as will the hardback. So you just have many, many ways to generate income from the content that you have. Broadly speaking, as a top level view, most of the income generally is going to be from Audible and Ingram Spark, which is another print on demand platform. And the reason that those two are most prominent in terms of the income, especially in recent times, I haven't really spent any money on advertising. So those two don't have direct advertising platforms in the way that Amazon does. So very, very hands off in a sense. So most of the income will come from Ingram Spark and Audible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what was your sort of niche selection process for this business? Because I know it seems like you cover quite a variety of niches.
To use the sort of term du jour, it was a bit of a shotgun approach. Published in a bunch of different niches, tried a bunch of different things, saw what worked, and then kind of doubled down on it. Really, the kind of consistent theme that I found was that keyword and that kind of side of research is important, and you do need to find something that obviously stacks up, because I've made the mistake previously of trying to go into niches that maybe there was a bit too much competition, or there was no way of differentiating myself or standing out, or et cetera, all the standard stuff. But once those things are identified, the key thing that I found is just focusing on the actual quality of the product, of the books, because it's very easy, especially when you're coming from the standpoint of let me publish a book or several books in several different niches, to be a bit slapdash with the quality of books, because you're going for sort of quantity over quality. Effectively, what ends up happening is you can publish a bunch of, let's call them not so great books, and they'll probably sell for a month or two, but then they kind of die off. And generally, my experience has taught me is if you want to have consistency, as shown in the last, probably 12, 18 months, I suppose, of sales of the business, you can pretty much not touch it and they'll tick over, provided the books are good enough. And that was a big learning from my side, for sure.
Yeah, once you get that foundation in place, you can sort of build on that. So is the main reason you're selling the business is because you want to focus on other projects?
Yeah, basically, I've also just bought a house, so that comes with a set of fiscal challenges. So I'd like to be in a slightly better position in terms of cash reserves. But the main focus is the other business. I'd like to put more money into getting more staff in, and on the marketing side of things as well. There's, I suppose, an emotional attachment to this business because it was the one that started it all. I think it would serve me better to exit at this stage and focus on the other things I've got going on.
So is there anything you've learned from this business that you would apply to the other business?
I think for me, again, it just comes down to quality. So like being clear on what the market wants. I know this is obviously, to anyone potentially listening to this is like the most basic stuff. Like, yeah, obviously you've got to listen to what your market wants. But especially when you come from a standpoint of, from the publishing side of things, a lot of the content out there tells you just get more volume out, you'll sell more books. But for longevity's sake, I think that was one of the biggest standpoints for me, was having realization and then implementing that in terms of really understanding the market, finding out what their problems are, and then addressing those in a much better way than anyone else in the niche did. That had such a profound impact in terms of, not only book sales, but also helped me feel better about when I was putting out books. I was like, right, not only is this book going to make money, this book is actually going to help people. So I think that focus on quality and not necessarily quantity was the biggest learning from my side.
Yeah, it's certainly something we hear a lot. I mean, even with Amazon FBA, when selling products, that the quality of the product is becoming increasingly important, and especially with such an amazing amount of competition. Was there anything you tried when growing this business that didn't work out for you then?
Well, yeah, obviously the converse, going for a volume approach in different niches and so on. And I think the upfront process in terms of vetting niches and keywords prior to getting stuck in, because a lot of the processes that used to work in terms of identifying what a profitable niche or a profitable keyword was don't necessarily work now. So I think that process had to be refined over a period of time. So now, up until very recently when I was publishing, But even now, it's a case of you can look at a keyword and objectively say with a fair degree of confidence whether it's likely to be profitable for you as opposed to just generally profitable for someone. And I think that was a big learning point for me as well, because it not necessarily, you can't be guaranteed that every book you put out is going to be, an absolute smash hit, but it definitely weighted the odds much more in your favor to go through that process. So a big learning point for me, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting insights related to the keywords. Where do you say the majority of the traffic comes from?
Yeah, so it's Audible and Ingram and Spark are the main ones for sure. So Audible being the audiobooks, Ingram and Spark primarily being paperback, some hardback sales there as well. But yeah, pretty much the vast majority of the income will come from those two sources at the moment.
Got it. And what do you currently do in terms of marketing?
Exactly zero.
Okay, fair enough.
I know it sounds lazy.
Yeah, I mean, it serves as opportunities for a buyer, and I see there's an email list including the sale, and I also see that you've sort of set up a brand that could be launched. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, in effect, kind of the talk about focusing on one niche, focusing on quality, understanding the niche and so on. So after a little while, decided I was going to go all in on a specific niche. It was a niche I'm familiar with, had some, not expertise necessarily, but, I spoke the language of the potential buyers. So decided to go all in. I've had 6 books produced, high quality books that are all edited, written by people that are in the space and edited by a professional. They've all been formatted, the covers and everything are there. They're ready, basically they're ready to go. The first book has been published. I didn't necessarily have the time to do a really good job of launching that book, although, it still did okay off the bat. But the other 5 plus the subsequent bundle of all of the books are there, basically ready to go. The website's set up. There's a lead magnet, the email list, the email sequence is already written. There's a Facebook page that's set up with the lead magnet already embedded. Basically, it's like a turnkey brand that's ready to go. It's just the case that from my side, when I kind of got to that point, I was already thinking about this other venture and ended up focusing almost all my time on that. So it's there, it's ready to go for someone that has a modicum of time to spend on it. But it's basically, a done-for-you brand is good to go.
Okay, yeah, and I guess, like we mentioned, launching that brand could be a growth opportunity for a buyer to consider. But if you were to keep the business, what are some of the ways that you would try and grow it?
First things first, I would get that brand launched, just because I think it's a case of there's a lot of money that's sat there if you have the time, and it's not necessarily a lot of time, but the time to just do it. And anyone that's ever been involved in starting a new business like this other venture will know that kind of absorbs all of your spare time. So I haven't been able to get around to it. But that, if I were to keep it, that would be the main thing. I know people in that same niche, I know multiple people in that same niche where individual books will do north of 10K a month on the individual books. So it is a space where there is a lot of money to be made potentially. So that would be my first port of call. Secondly, for all of the books that are already there on Amazon, I would start running ads because, again, just meaning to be more hands off with the business. I moved away from that, but the option's always there to go back to it and get going again. So that would be the second step. I think those would be the main point. There are some other sort of tertiary steps you could take in terms of adding the books to other additional platforms like Smashwords and Google Books and things like that. But the 2 main ones that you're going to get like the biggest bang for your buck are going to be launching the brand and running ads on the existing portfolio as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned that the business is like very passive, but is there any sort of day-to-day work you do in this business to sort of check it?
I know this sounds like one of those like cheesy late night infomercial things, but literally like I get up, I live my life, I go to bed, and then once a month I get some money deposited in my account from the various different platforms. That is literally the extent of time I've spent on the business, for the last 12 months. There have been some few minor exceptions in terms of like getting stuff ready for that brand, but in terms of like on a day-to-day management stuff of the actual business, practically zero.
Got it. Yeah, you set it up as such where it's earning and come automatically. But what sort of skills or requirements do you think there are for someone who is not familiar with this niche or business model?
Well, there's 2 potential situations you could be in. You could be in the situation of you have cash, you want to just get a relatively decent ROI, you just buy it and leave it alone and it will just tick over, as shown by relatively consistent monthly income. So that's one way. So you don't need to be familiar with anything. You just need to have everything transferred over and the money comes into your bank account once a month. Fine. If you are familiar at all with Amazon as a platform, not even necessarily the KDP side of things, you could get involved in the ads, which I think, again, is kind of one of the key things. And I think maybe very bare minimal understanding of, email marketing and that kind of side of things would be extremely useful for the brand, the sort of pending brand, because, once you start engaging people, once you start selling books, effectively you're in a position where you can sell books to generate leads. So you're basically getting paid to generate leads. And then obviously you have the opportunity to sell those leads something on the back end. So minimal experience, I think, or willingness to be involved in email marketing would be another possibility as well.
Yeah, so marketing focused skills. So what do you think are the biggest risks with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
Yeah, this is one of those, what is your biggest weakness questions in an interview. Probably the only downside that I can think of would be potential complacency. And what I mean by that is, in and of itself, because the business is so passive, the temptation could be to just leave it alone. It just works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just leave it there. But as we said before, that there's so much potential value in it if you have the skills or the time or effort to put into it, to launch the brand, to run the ads, etc., that we've spoke about. I think the only downside would be well, it works, I'll just leave it alone. You're basically leaving money on the table if you don't do that. I think that would be the only downside I could think of.
Yeah, that's it. It's an interesting insight. If you want to make an ROI, you've got to work on the business a bit to scale it to the next level, I guess. So, great stuff. Overall, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer then, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
As I said before, it's hands off right now, and you can leave it like that. So you already get a solid ROI just as it stands. But if you want to, maximize your potential upside, if you have either a bit of relevant experience or you're willing to put in, if I'm being honest, a sort of relatively small amount of work, you can launch a new brand, which is pretty much done for you, start running ads and expand the existing books out to other platforms. The average monthly, I think, for the last 12 months is just over 3K, but it's very feasible to get that north of 10K in a very short period of time with just the existing books and the new brand. That, as I said, other people that I know personally in that brand have done more than 10K with a single book in that niche. So I don't think it's going to be too difficult to get a better return on your investment, let's put it that way.
Makes a lot of sense. So regarding the sale of the business then, would you commit to a non-compete?
Yeah, within the main niche for sure.
And how much support are you willing to offer buyers? Are you going for the standard 30 days of email and Skype support?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm always happy to be flexible with these things. If it takes a little bit longer, if it needs to be 60 days or whatever, I'm perfectly happy to commit a bit more time, especially if someone's not familiar with the business or the model.
And are you open to negotiating something like an earnout?
Yeah, potentially. Obviously, it depends on the terms, but yeah, definitely.
Anything else you'd like to share that I might have missed?
I don't think so. I think you did a pretty solid job there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, Edward. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 53875. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description and go straight to the listing. Once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.